our final qualifying weekend of FNCS Major number 3. It's our third and final major where our Duos can qualify for the Global Championships in September in Dallas, Texas. But joining me now from their own respective corners of the United Kingdom are our analysts. It's Levin 2K and Mini Minor.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up? I'm just going to, listen, I'm going to drop you guys in. I was slightly worried that you wouldn't make the broadcast because, Levin, you were just in a game of Reloaded. If you've opened up your Fortnite client recently, you'll be familiar with Fortnite Reloaded. What happened?
I was in a great game of Reload. I was stacked. I was feeling it. My squad was on point, and then everyone's like, "Levin, you gotta focus up. Broadcast starts in 30 seconds." I'm like, "All right, man. I guess I'll show up to my job, eh?"
This is the thing, Levin was suspiciously quiet. Minnie, were you playing with him as well?
Earlier on, yeah, we had a few games, myself, Levin, Takar, and Jacob. We're the God Squad here, Frankie, you can play next time, because there'll be a next time, I'm sure. Don't tell us.
Yeah, I never get an invite for some reason, boys. It's just because I'm a zero builder, honestly. Let's talk about some returning faces, though, for qualifying number 2. Because last week, shockingly, we didn't get to see Queasy and Thomas, Levin.
I mean, yeah, big shock for a lot of people, right? Of course, when you look at the landscape of EU right now, Frankie, they're two of the biggest names in the region, right? And so, after a bit of an up and down season in Major 2, I think a lot of people expected them to come through Major 3 locked in the season before Globals and just really show what they can do. It's not quite been that because, again, in week 1, they didn't make it to round 4, but they are here this week. And I think there's one thing we know for certain with Queasy and Thomas Mini, and that is when they need to show up, they will.
Yeah, they do. And this is one of those teams that we can count on to qualify for the upper bracket. They still have a little bit to do today to qualify for those upper brackets, but I think that they will have no problems with that. They're landing at classy courts today. One of those teams that we saw last season playing a lot of Storm, playing a lot of Launchpad plays. So I'm interested to see whether they can continue to do that in today's competition. And also something else, that Queasy actually injured his finger whilst playing basketball yesterday going into the competition. So I hope that's healed well for him. It didn't seem to affect him yesterday because they managed to qualify for today, but something to keep your eyes on, maybe, just to see if he makes any strange plays, because he has an excuse.
Here's the thing, I want to make a joke about how none of our pros should be touching grass, but actually staying fit and healthy is really important for your success as a pro. But maybe we add basketball to the list of games that you guys out there are not allowed to play. Maybe just stick to things with the feet. There's some competition around football going on right now. Maybe watch that and get inspired as we talk about another returning duo, Seti and Cami, another duo already qualified for Dallas. But it was surprising not to see them here last week, Mini Minor. I missed them.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that you almost just expect to see in finals, expect to see in round 4s. But as you mentioned, last week, we didn't get to see them in. I think for this duo, it's all about the new sort of meta that's now evolved. Of course, the Nitro has been nerfed, so I think it's going to suit them a little bit more. I don't think they were a big fan of the way that Nitro worked previously. So I think for these guys, making those nice rotations, whenever I watch their games, they're always on that dead side. They always seem to be in the prime position, Levin. And I think the way that the old mobility meta worked with those Nitro Fizz, I don't think it really suited them. And I think this is the meta. This is the environment in which that they can shine.
Yeah, from watching their games, early on in the season, they played things out well. I think tactically, strategically, this is going to be a team that is in top form come grand finals. They have so many good ideas cooking. But yeah, this just wasn't the sort of meta that you would say plays into Cami and Seti's hands. A meta where, things can easily be taken out of your control isn't something that they typically acclimatize well to. So I think now we've seen some changes to the meta. These guys will be in much better shape.
We've also seen some changes to the lobby for this season, and it's been interesting to see which names have gone over to North America. But this weekend, we've got a duo that have come over from the Middle East to qualify, Levin. What can you tell us about QNDX and Phantom?
Yeah, QNDX and Phantom, big ups to them for making the switch over. Of course, it's not common that we see a team come from, what's considered usually as a smaller region to come to the big pond that is EU. But these guys have come through and they're trying to qualify here. They're obviously FNCS champions in their own rights over on Middle East side of things. And so, yeah, trying to get one of the many qualifier spots here in EU. There's more qualifier spots available. So I think in their minds, it's like, let's get some good practice, but let's also try and get one of the spots. It's been a bit of a rocky season for them, Mini, I think most people would say, but let's see what they can do here today and in terms of, solidifying themselves in the region.
Yeah, it's been a really rocky season for them. This is actually the first set lobby final that they've made in the entire season. They haven't made any Geocache Cup finals. Of course, they didn't appear in round number 4 last week. And I think today is going to be a little bit difficult for them. They're landing towards the south side of the map, that mini Dirty Docks area. They're actually being contested by Haijo and his duo. So what I've seen from them, off-spawn can be a little bit rocky. Of course, only 6 games for them today. And even when they make it to endgame, they struggle to get into that upper echelon of placements, into that top 5. So if they can solve those issues today, they should be on to some success. But I want to see how they do. I'm excited to watch this duo today.
I'm really excited to see how they do, so hopefully we'll get to keep a close eye on them as the lobby progresses. Right now, though, let's check in with our fabulous casters. No surprises, though, for guessing. It is, of course, Jacob P. to Carter.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Look, I just want to give everyone a quick reminder that all the players that are competing here today in the Qualifier 2 weekly finals have already made it to the semifinals. Jacob, they've guaranteed their spot in the lower bracket. However, it's a battle for the upper bracket right now, which puts players like Podosai and Snazy needing an 11th place finish today to make upper bracket. But there's a lot of duos that have already qualified to the upper bracket as they got back-to-back qualifications. Any names, Jacob? Any underdogs? Who are you thinking about?
I mean, I'm looking at one team that you might look at as an underdog, but with the Stars moving on over to NA, this is their chance to get that limelight. Akira, Yeezy, they have been performing phenomenally, which is to say they only have 1 FNCS finals combined between them two. They had a 9th place, they had a top 20 in round 3, and they're fighting for even more points. And if you look at where they're at on the series point leaderboard, 6th so far. And with nothing to lose today, I'm going to look at them to put it all to the test and really show the blueprint for that upper bracket spot they have a few weeks away.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure for some duos, but also other duos like Cammy and Seti. I think all they need is a top 35 kind of estimated to make it to that upper bracket. It's going to be about 603 points, the cutoff for the upper bracket in terms of series points. So it's kind of on the edge. We also had the update to Nitro damage to structures. They went from 300 to 90, so a lot less of that Nitro chaos on the low ground. A lot of big changes here for the last qualifier and the last chance for these players to qualify to the semifinals. But we still got more to break down, so let's head right back over to Frankie.
Thank you very much, guys. I didn't notice it earlier, but I'm loving how Jacob is just edging himself taller and taller than Takata every week when we cut to them on the camera. It's so different to last year when Jake and Levin would walk onto set. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just getting nostalgic vibes right now. But we can't be nostalgic because we've got to talk about the changes that we have seen to the map, Levin, because these biomes always be changing by the developers. Gosh, I'm so on street.
No, look, let's jump into it. I mean, we've not really had much conversation on the broadcast, so far about like the different POIs and whatnot. I think one interesting conversation that always comes up every season is, like what are the strongest POIs, and people have their opinions. And I think it's important to highlight the fact that just because one POI is considered the strongest, it doesn't always mean that the FNCS winner will correlate to that POI. But I wanted to know, like, the fact of what do all the casters think are like the top 5 strongest POIs. So I went around, we asked everybody what are your top 5 POIs in order, and we have a combined list based off of what all the casters and the analysts and everyone a part of the broadcast has said. And so I'm interested to see what that list looks like now.
I love this because Levin even asked me as well, probably because he knew I'm efficient and I give him an answer. So Mini Miner, in reverse order then, take us through the top 5.
Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look at what is going to be our 5th place POI. Nitro Drone is actually number 5 there, Levin. Okay.
Okay, let's look at number 4. I don't know if I put Nitro Drone in my top 5, but we'll get to it. Number 4. The Orchard Station split, so for the people that don't know, this is like what is considered the Cammy split. If you're in NA, people call it the Tasting in the Yomzo split right now, right? But Orchard Station split, interesting 4 spot. What's 3? What's number 3? Let's take a look at number 3.
Let's take a look. Ooh,
Sandy Steps. Okay.
Changed up this season as well, of course, was a little bit different. Snooty Steps before. Now let's have a look at number 2. Brutal Beachhead. Okay, interesting. Now let's look at number 1. I think it's pretty obvious what number 1's going to be. Yeah.
Number 1, Redline Rig. No surprises there. I can actually reveal, right? Every single person voted for Redline Rig as number 1. It was the unanimous winner across the FNCS. Yeah, even Frankie voted for it as number 1. I think it's understandable why, right? Obviously, that sort of the medallion you get from there, the machinist, right, with the HP. Of course, the AR as well is unbelievable, that mythic AR. it makes sense why Redline Rig's considered the number 1 spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, last week we had 2 teams contesting there, wasn't it? Swizzy and Vanyat versus Mustache and Malabuka. 2 teams that really wanted that loot, and for good reason, right? You have that medallion, that shield medallion, you have that amazing assault rifle as well that just seems to beam through players' HP. So I think Redline Rig is the deserved top spot here at our number 1.
Absolutely.
But
Of course,
Vanyat
we
and
have to
Swizzy are
talk about
moving.
the fact that, one of those teams did move, right? Swizzy and Vanyat were contesting it, Mini, but now they've decided to go to Brutal Beachhead. It's funny because if you actually watch some of their games from like the previous rounds of FNCS this week, they are still landing Redline Rig. It's just here in round 4, they've decided not to contest it. And interestingly, I feel like number 2 spot for Brutal Beachhead is a bit too high. I don't know what you feel like, Mini Miner, but of course these guys have now decided to land it.
Yeah, it's a solid drop spot. I agree it's maybe slightly too high on that list, but I think when it comes down to it, that combat shotgun, that mythic combat shotgun is still so powerful. I was watching a lot of the games over the weekend. A lot of players are still carrying that combat shotgun and using it to their advantage. Swizzy and Vanyat now, of course, we didn't get to see them use that loot last week. Of course, we got to see them winning off spawn a little bit at Redline Rig. I think we got to see them get a win last week, but what I'm interested to see, can they keep that consistency? Now they're uncontested. When they did make it off spawn last week, their games weren't quite as consistent apart from that 1 win. So now it's a big test for these guys.
For me, the reason why I feel like Brutal's maybe a bit too high is because obviously with the changes we've had, right? Obviously at the start of the season, you would have put it a lot higher, right? Obviously the mythic gloves removed, right? We don't have those, so instantly loses that. The combat was really strong in a meta with fists in the game, right? Because when people are fisting through end games, like being able to pick them up with the combat shotgun was a lot easier than now with Nitro. It's a lot harder to hit people in those situations. And obviously the recent changes this weekend with obviously Nitro splashes and the Nitro effect not being as strong when it comes to structure damage. For me, Brutal's just lost a lot of its power. And then when you compare it to like a lot of those other southern spots, it doesn't have the best in terms of the cacti around compared to the others. It doesn't actually have the best ring rotations compared to the others. So for me, Brutal's probably just a bit lower nowadays. Another spot that I was a bit confused about in terms of being in that top 5, I didn't have it in my top 5, Nitro Drone. Again, if you'd asked at the start of the season, strongest POI in the game, that bow was unreal. Now, obviously, it doesn't have that. I feel like Nitro Drone is still a top spot, and I think people probably consider it one of the best spots because we've seen so many good teams land there. Of course, here in the EU, Teeny and Chap have made this spot look like an FNCS winning spot because that's what a good team will do. And I think when you look at Teeny and Chap, me saying this spot isn't a top 5 spot doesn't matter in the context of I still think these guys are the contenders to win, right? Like I still think these guys are probably the favorites to win FNCS in EU this season. I just feel like Nitro Drone probably isn't the best spot in the game right now, but Chap and Teeny have been phenomenal out of here, Mini.
Well, remember, Chapantini, as soon as the news got announced that they removed the bow, the mythic bow from competitive, Chapantini had a little bit of a panic. They thought, right, let's just go straight down to Brutal Beachhead. They had a little bit of a thought about that. I think they posted it on socials. They were like, right, we're changing up our drop spot. Now, though, they're back towards the Nitrodrome area. And although, as you mentioned, it's definitely not as good as it was, certainly not. It wasn't in my top 5 either. But I think it still offers a lot of value when it comes to the position on the map. Whenever we watch Chapantini play, they often like to go for that forecast tower towards the west side. They're always W keying that area. They can get loot pretty quickly, and although the loot isn't necessarily really quick there's a lot of quick metal that they can farm in that area as well. Combined with the cacti as well, they can just get so much metal, so much of that HP early on, and then straight on over W key that forecast tower. So a key element to their success is the location of that drop spot.
Now, boys, I just want to ask you, do you think we're expecting to see any exciting off-spawn fights this weekend? Because we've mentioned already Swizzy and Vanyat, they don't want to fight their mates Mustache and Malabuka at Redline Rig anymore. But I'm just wondering, do you think there's going to be interesting turf wars going on, Lenny?
I think the most interesting one is obviously the one happening at that sort of Orchard Station split, right? Cammy and City versus Akira and Yeezy. Like, again, City and Cammy historically haven't been the best off-spawn team in the world, even though they did win the most important off-spawn fight of all time at Invitational a couple years ago. Still, right, I want to see how they do and how they fare against that team. Again, Akira, console player, everyone's been hyping him up and how good console players have been doing of late. So we'll see how that off-spawn fight goes today.
Minnie?
100%. I mean, for me, I'm looking at that as well. QNDX Phantom, I mentioned it earlier, going up against Haijo and his duo Kaito all the way down the south side of the map. That drop spot is going to be really difficult because not only are they contesting each other, they also have Mustache and Malabuka just to the north at Redline Rig. So if that fight decides to drag on, if they decide to take a little bit too long with that fight, they're just going to get cleaned up by the third party. Not only that, even the Brawlers Battleground team as well could be coming on over to that area. So that fight is going to be one that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on today because both of those teams need a solid performance today.
All right then, boys. The battle bus has been buffed. It's looking squeaky clean and ready to take to the sky. So let's head over to Takata and Jacob PR to get things started. Lemon, you're next.
Thank you, Frankie. Battle Bus is squeaky clean, but it's still getting the engine started. So, Jacob, last opportunity for these players to make it in the upper bracket for the semifinals. Everybody is getting warmed up now, getting ready for the first match. It went so quickly, right? I mean, 2 qualifiers, 2 chances to make semifinals now in the weekly finals for the second qualifier. So, we'll have to see which players stand out. We were just talking about it, but the southern side of the map, as expected, is incredibly contested. A lot of duos going head to head, so I don't know, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's get right into the game because it's ready. It's starting now.
Head to heads, it's gonna be interesting, Jacob. Southern side, we were talking about it, it's gonna be tough to battle out some of the split drops, like we were kind of talking about, you know, the Orchard split. Is it the Camiseti split, the Taste and Nyamzo split? It's kind of like that in between the triangle of the 3 POIs, which have the medallions on the southern side of the map. So seeing the 2 teams are contesting each other there, it's going to be quite 50-50, but we'll have to see kind of how it turns out.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how teams really adapt to the changes as well. I know they kind of hinted a little bit on the desk, talking about the Nitro changes, and it's huge. And this is one of the POI that feels it the most. And with Swizzy going down, that's a big opportunity to finish that second elimination. But he's at least going to trade it off, bring it down to a 1v1. Even though he was able to get the elimination, he still goes down and taken out of Brutal Beachhead early.
Swizzy Vanyak out of game number 1 already. What a way to go down. Brutal Beachhead showing how quickly the tables can turn. Also a quick replay here. What happened around Classy Courts.
That was just an easy off-spawn fight from Onye. First shot, got him weak. Second shot, was able to get the down. Teammate cleaned that one up. And that gives them a lot of time to work with. But you got to go ahead and remember, last week when we were watching, majority of the games were won by contested teams this time around. And with the Nitros, the Storm Surge, and a lot of that affecting the game plan, I think it might change up just a little bit this week, especially with some teams already comfortable in the upper bracket, other teams still having to fight for that spot. And that spot means so much because you know as well as I do, once you get the upper bracket, you get those 5 chances, you win a game, you go to the grand finals. It's just a much easier road.
A lot more opportunity, and here it is. The duo now competing on EU. Phantom is left alone, though, as his duo partner has been fully finished. As it looks like now it's turned into a 1 versus 1. Haijo on the opposing end here. Both players cracked now. No shield to work with. Finish is going to come through. As patience is key here. 1 big shot. It's all Phantom needs to connect, as he should have the loot advantage from that finish. However, Haijo actually gonna be able to max out his shield here. Almost 200 effective HP and shield. As shots do come in from afar. Slight third party, increasing the risk of this fight.
It's a tricky fight too, because both of these guys at one point or another almost out of ammo, but Phantom getting aggressed on by Haijo. He has to be careful. Only 1 shot left. The rest is going to go down the Enforcer. That one's going to be used. Haijo dropped to just 19 HP. A dream that he's trying to keep alive, but Phantom, QNDX, all the way from Middle East. Even though they don't have an FNCS championship together, they do have FNCS titles and experience under the belt, and they're showing off big here early on in game 1.
I'm wondering who's taking shots at them. You can see it was props. They're actually close by. I was thinking if it's gonna turn into an aggressive third party, but it looks like just pop shots for Cami and Seti, though. Dropped quite low here. Do have their split contested. It's what we were just talking about while we were dropping in. But so far, it looks like they are gonna make it out of the situation. The issue is, will they be able to get enough loot, enough resources to make something happen here? But be careful, as Akira sneaking on up. They might even get some shots onto them.
Yeah, the team was kind of contesting them, splitting a lot of that loot, making it hard for anybody to really have a good, confident early game. but both Seb and Emil just trying to go in. They have a team that they have weak. They started it off early, and now they're trying to just finish it off before anybody else moves into the fray, but things come crashing down momentarily. That displaces a couple of those players, but that's not going to stop them from moving in. First knock's going to go through. Emil quickly turns around, tries to go back-to-back against Vision, and that's going to be a good opportunity. It's actually various props, excuse me, there, and they're just going on the chase. They know this is now a solo. They don't have to worry about that knock just yet, and they're just putting their numbers to use to swarm on him and not really give him a chance at survival.
Nice 2 eliminations picked up by Seb. It's been non-stop aggression here so far. I mean, you can see how many players are choosing to go to the southern map, even if it means they're going to be contested, because it's so powerful in terms of the natural mobility from those nitro rings, the cactuses to heal up that shield you might need. So many environmental factors to your benefit on this side of the map. As now Tidy almost getting cracked there, but he was able to land a shot.
Yeah, Lens is taking a lot of the pressure now. Shield's getting dropped off. Teammate needs to go there to alleviate some of that. They finally reunite, and the first knock on the Jew is going to be solidified. And now that they have that time, you see them backtracking, slowing things down, trying to heal up. But on the other side, that's Asa trying to finish the early damage and take advantage. He knows he's by himself, so he has to do what he can. But now he gets himself boxed up, almost gets trapped out, but he's quickly moving through a lot of these builds. And now he has to make that conscientious decision to disengage. He's allowed them too much time to heal up, and fighting that would have been night fair for him.
On the run, duo partner down. The chase has started. Will the mind games work? Do they know that Asa has stopped down below here, crouched in the corner? As you can see, they're thinking, where could he have went? I don't know if I like this play. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's not even like a little ridge that he can use, but it looks like it might have just worked.
A little bit of a ridge.
He's got
barely going out. But that heal, if they were just close enough, they would see it. All they have to do is backtrack, but they do have their eyes set forwards, possibly thinking he's hiding in some of those builds, as they're going to go ahead and position themselves here. And now they have to make a decision. You looked at their inventory. They literally have almost nothing, and that's why they're going to use this cactus to try to get their shields up, max it out, and then they're going to try to rotate, grab together whatever loot and scraps that they can find. But this is the story that I've been waiting for almost all day long. Chap and Teeny, the fight for the forecast tower, and they're increasingly more aggressive each week that we do get to watch them play.
Vidil is going to be the one that so far has claimed kind of the mountainside to see if they can get some shots onto Chapantini, but as the zone is already gonna come to a close here, Vidil is gonna be forced out of his position.
Only 15 teams qualified for round 4 in both qualifiers. Shows that in this season, this region, things have been kind of shaken up more and more and more, and that just kind of opens that window of opportunity. You know, you can practice for weeks and weeks and weeks, but if you don't show up on qualifier 1 and then now here on qualifier 2, it only matters so much. As we see in one of those nitro rotates, unfortunately Malibuka gets beamed right before he goes right through it, but that's not too much of a worry because look what they found. A couple more cactuses they can use, the medallion to trade off, getting back up to 200 effective shield and HP is gonna be no worry for them.
Right, they can just trade the medallion back and forth, like you mentioned, to get that shield recuperated without having to use any of the consumables. What's interesting about this side of the map with those nitro rings is, as it's being contested by so many duos and there's so many kind of fights going on, the third parties are even more risky here, as when you see duos kind of taking shots at each other and going in those engagements, you can get to them pretty quickly. So you do have to try and finish them as quickly as possible so you don't get hunted down by these other duos in the area. But as for Nine and Della here, have set up kind of their surge base for the players that are going to be rotating back up north. This should open up quite a few opportunities to get that damage without putting them at too much risk.
I feel like that's the thing this season, especially with the nerf to the nitros, to where if you're down on surge, you can no longer just break into a box, land a couple of shots, and then try to get out. It's kind of back to that old style of Fortnite where these surge bases, being proactive and planning 2, 3, sometimes even 4 steps ahead to figure out where you're not only going to get that loot, but the surge, because it really kind of dictates your game plan, how you get to play. And you're seeing teams wait so far back in the bunkers to try to replenish some of those heals to make staggering themselves missing out on Surge, a worthwhile game plan. But now we're going to see what happens when two teams box up next to each other and have that same exact game plan fighting for the bunker.
Strokey on the aggressor side here. Sky Scroll getting lower and lower, forced to pop a med kit, but now the issue is if they start getting their walls replaced here, they're gonna have to make a peek, gonna have to make something happen, as they can't just let the clock tick. Strokey unable to connect his shots, lot of materials being used, no hard hits connected yet.
Yeah, but the tables have definitely turned. They need to drop down and get to that bunker. I would say no heals on a fast Roki. Time is definitely ticking. Sky and Scroll, they try to time it perfectly so they get the most use out of their own med kits, but because of what you were saying, they got aggressed onto, almost getting their piece of control. They were forced to cancel them out just a little bit early. Scroll starting to fight, drops down, trying to contest that bunker, doesn't want to let it go for free, but everybody here, how far they are away from the actual zone, puts them on the clock, and it forces teams to disengage everything that they just fight for out of the window, because they now know they can no longer stay in the zone and contest this because it'll risk everything.
Yeah, good job by, I believe it was Sky who was able to get inside the bunker first. Raban and Strokey realized, okay, they're already in the bunker. We could fight for it, but zone's too far. We're going to lose too much HP. Not enough heals. It's just not worth it at this point. So we'll see what they end up doing. Once they make it into the zone, will they try and hold them off? Will they just get a zone position? I think they were able to do a bit of damage, at least with the back and forth, so not too bad of a start either way. Podosai Snazy, we talked about it earlier. They need to get 11th today if they want to qualify to the upper bracket of the semifinals and give them more opportunities to make it to the grand finals. So we'll need to see quite a good performance from this duo today, as Pablo is going to try and stop that.
Hey, the implications of Podosai and Snazy squeaking in with 11th place, though, because not only will they get their upper bracket, they're going to build some confidence. They have a couple weeks break to go ahead and try to figure out their game plan for the semifinals. So this could be a kind of trickle-down effect for Podosai and Snazy, but I might be just a little too ahead of myself. Tony, Pablo, they beam them down, getting them to waste a lot more builds, some of those materials and resources that they've been using, but not too much of a worry. I do believe they might be positioned nearby one of those cactuses, so free heals if they can continue to reach it, replenish it, and probably use it to its full effect.
A lot of duos, actually. You can see the mini-map bottom right. 4 different teams, it seems, now.
Oof, no.
Getting closer and closer as Snazy gets cracked by Akira and Easy. But it looks like it's too risky to get aggressive here. Some more just do the damage. We'll see where zone does pull, how far, or even how close.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, too, because now that they've used the cactus down below, they got covered up by the storm. Now it's not going to get replenished, so they can no longer use it, and that's why you're seeing a couple teams making a far rotation out. If you see in your minimap those yellow arrows at the bottom left, that's going to be Podosai and Snazy, and they're just kind of getting forced to change directions because all those teams overtook them on that next rotation. That's Riss. We saw him not too long ago by himself, a solo. Good to know that eye drop is now back into the game. And even if the zone is so far, you do have those nitro rings. It is a 1 tick, so they have a lot of time. As long as they can find heals just like this, even bandages will work.
Didn't even see. Riss led all players with 65 eliminations in round 3. We know round 3s are played quite a bit differently than a round 4 format, which is only 50 duos and 100 total players in set lobbies, instead of various set lobbies being played out at the same time. However, you know, it's still a bit of a confidence booster. You talk about that curse, where if you do good in the qualification rounds for these final set lobbies, then you might not do as good in the final rounds, but it's all just a mental game. Tidy now from quite a good start with 3 eliminations to put into a 1 versus 2 with his teammate on the floor right now. This is not the position you want to be in, Jacob.
Nah, especially since he's missing shields already. Luckily, that one wasn't a monster of a shot. It was almost a bare minimum. Nice backtracking, playing defensive, getting both of them weak, but now he's dropped to just 8 HP, still trying to survive. At least he has Storm Surge going for him. 15 damage, 1,500 damage above the threshold. A chance to drop down, heal up as much as possible. The lens is still going down slowly but surely. and eventually it's going to come down to a 1v1. He's still fighting for every single second here in this game, and I would say luckily they are on the edge of zone, so they do have time before zone comes in, but with his teammate going down, he's officially been left by himself with a team on the chase. Whether it's nerfed or not, the Nitro Splash is going to make it easy for them to block off some paths and make him regret that decision before he finally goes down.
You can see as well, when you try and break a structure with Nitro activated, if you're unable to break it, you kind of like bounce back a little bit. So you lose some of that momentum while you're hunting down your players, but it still opens up opportunity if you want to do a wall replace or kind of whatever strategy you might have in mind. It is 90 structure damage now, so it is possible to break through quite a lot of builds, but you got to be quick with it. And for chasing people down, it still works out quite well. Now back over to Mount Olympus. A lot of duos deciding to base up here, reform some of the materials as they wait for next zone to pull.
Yeah, and just going throughout this week, I know they missed last week in that top 50. This week, it's kind of the same Seti and Cammy that we know. You know, they kind of have a slow start to some of these majors, a slow start to a lot of these games. Throughout these first 3 rounds so far, they only have 32 eliminations, so it's back to the basics. Play for placements, know those opportunities will present themselves, but from a team that doesn't get eliminations, that we just saw some of the most eliminations, and Aris now once again left by himself with eye drop going down, and this is a tough spot. There's a few teams all in the mix and a couple more trying to rotate on over, and fortnite and Della finally take him out. And as good as Aris has been doing so far in this qualifier, game 1 is not going to be his game.
Yeah, first place in the previous round to make it here today. But when you go down so early game 1 and now you kind of just sit in the lobby and have a good 20-25 minutes to think about what went wrong, you can hope the mental stays strong going into the next match. For Della now trying to fully clean this situation up as there's still one player on his toes here. You can see in the surrounding area, though, they aren't the only ones interested in this fight as shots keep coming through. No big ones being connected here as they do want to finish this off quickly. 40 white, and now his duo partner Della was able to clean it up. 3 elims on the board, 759 above. Good position to be in.
Yeah, you can kind of see how it all started. His teammates down there in the box. Fanayan, they get a knock on a whole nother team, which is eye drop. And he's hoping at that point. He's praying like, hey, maybe they don't know I'm here as a solo, but they started the fight. They're going to finish the fight. They find every single point there in that altercation and get out before the third parties come in. 357 above as we tune into Queasy and Thomas in a tough spot. Even though there's only one team, CZB and Nathan directly on him, there's other players. You see towards the north, they're moving in that direction. They're trying to third party. And CZB is actually by himself. For Queasy and Thomas, they feel like this should be an easy elimination, a quick cleanup, points and a refresh that they're trying to be after. And it's crucial for them to bide their time because CZB on the other side, 140 below the threshold. Eventually, he's going to have to push right into Queasy and Thomas and try to get that damage.
We missed out on them last week in the qualifiers, but they're back in business now as we expect from a duo of this caliber to see in these weekly finals. CZB now, as Storm Surge is thinking, goes on the run here. Thomas and Queasy, 350, 337 above the Storm Surge threshold now. So we'll see if they can connect a few more shots, but nothing worth going into zone here and chasing.
Yeah, and just looking at, CZB and Nathan, they've been so good, in these open style rounds. It's when you get to the final lobbies that they kind of find a little bit of trouble. That just comes with a lack of experience. Every single time, every single chance that they get, you see them progressively getting better as Nathan just tries to make a bull rush into the box. Down on Surge, we saw that. We know why they were going to go into that box, but when you leave yourself with no other choice but to do just that, you kind of have to figure out why you put yourself in that position and fix it before the next game.
All about adapting, all about fixing mistakes. If you're adapting to the change in Nitro, adapting to the change in who you're being contested by, or even who's blocking off your rotates, that's what Fortnite competitive is about. But these players are experienced. They know the most effective way to do so. So we switch back over to Teeny and Chap, who are on the hunt. We know how much this duo loves to play aggressively. And it looks like they just might be adding one more elimination to their arsenal. But as Teeny has been cracked and is forced to pop a medkit now in terms of shields, I don't see any in Chap's inventory. Flowberry Fizz for Teeny though, so he can kind of recuperate a bit of that there. However, they're going to need a refresh, not on materials, but almost just for loot here.
Yeah, the inventory looking a little shy right here. Enforcer and the DMR, typically it's only 2 weapons, the rest utility, but they've been just going one fight to the next. And keep in mind, early on in the game, we did see them grab that forecast tower, so take note of their rotations and how quick they're being a lot of teams in the punch because of it. As Fast Stroke and Robon, we saw them disengage off of the bunker. And rightfully so. Their loot may not be the best loot here in the lobby, but it's good enough to where you don't have to risk it all for a bunker fight deep into zone.
Yeah, you can see the zone has pulled northeast as well. There's a lot of duos already in zone, but for duos like Fastroke and Raban, they've picked up that elimination, and now they've got to kind of strategize their rotate, as there's going to be a lot of duos looking back at them. I'm trying to remember exactly kind of how much natural environmental cover they have on their way. As you can see, there is kind of a lot of eyes that are onto them, as they're going to be the last ones rotating in.
Almost a blessing and a curse. Some of the rotation will be smooth sailing, but as soon as those other teams make it to the zone, that's where it is going to get rough. From one side for the other, Akira and Easy, they take down the gentleman and inch themselves one step closer to being one of the elite teams here in the lobby. You can see what they were fighting for early on in the game, finally rotating away from the bunker. But just like Robon on the other side, along with Fast Strokey, some of this rotation will be smooth. Once they make it to the edge of zone, they're really going to have to figure out where they're actually going to position. Above teams, below some teams. Are they going to go a little bit deeper, or just kind of sit on the edge and hope for the best?
Yeah, you can see them rotating in. Akira does have an FNCS Finals appearance, but his duo does not. So if they're able to make it, would be his first FNCS Grand Finals. As now, Flowberry Fizzes are going to be put to good use here, but being 4 below doesn't put too much pressure on your shoulder, hopefully, but it is going to stress you out a little bit. Good news is, a lot of players rotating in late should open up some chances to connect a few shots. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the duos have already based up here.
He's just trying to focus anybody that he can. You see him kind of switching up targets, but he's not really finding those successful opportunities. Still 38 below, even though it's not much, it's still doing damage all the same. A few ticks already gone. Nate almost out of shields. They're trying to pop the Flowberry Fizz and sneak some shots in, but it's Emil out of nowhere above. They get a good shot, and they continuously fall below. This one is going to be so close to Kata. They got to hope that a couple more players quickly drop off the map so that Storm Surge will deactivate.
Heals being switched up, medkits being popped, 75 below as now the shots connect through. Both players gonna go down. As now a quick refresh for the solo. 3 elims on the board, total of 5. But the rotate has to come through. Full materials, solid loadout, good amount of damage now. As you can see, the players trying to claim good positioning, just like Murstache and Malabuka as he's connecting. Massive shots, but the battle now to claim the elevated location on this west side of the 8th zone is going to play out.
Man, they're playing their cards almost perfectly. You see, they're not going ultimate low ground just yet. They're going to try to get themselves on the edge, wait for the next zone, and then figure out their rotation from there. You know as well as I do, this season, a little bit more than most, once you're on that ultimate low, down in the mud, it's like quicksand. The longer you're there, the more you'll continue to sink, especially with so many duos all running around. And that's why you're seeing even teams like Reason and Vidil position themselves above the rest. Even with 5 eliminations, they're still looking for opportunities. You see right out the window, just a little bit of brick, but that little bit of brick could be the difference maker for them.
Teeny secured an elimination. Both players now in the clouds as well. Looks like they're going to try and hold on strong. This position here. Good amount of ammunition as well to take shots on these rotating players, and his zone is almost pulled back now. It's going to conserve them quite a few materials on this rotate. I'm curious to see, yeah, even though they have 2 eliminations, I didn't think they were too healthy in terms of damage. 29 above only. But luckily enough, when you're on height, when you have a good amount of ammo, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. You just want to focus on maintaining that position and not letting anybody catch you off guard. For Vidil and Reason, though, they are going to be trying to stay ahead.
Yeah, they waterfall themselves down. They know they're light on materials. Maintaining a high elevated position will get tougher and tougher, especially without the lack of resource to hold on. But top 17 situation, a good amount of points so far, but not even half just yet. So players still need to hold on here in this game to try to scrounge together more and really start off the day hot here in game number 1. Eliminations going haywire, and reason the deal, they're just trying to recycle. They're trying to sneak up on a team. They have the game plan in mind. They're just trying to figure out which team and player they're going to execute it on.
Nitro gets popped now. Gonna start their rotate on the edge of zone here as Merstash Malabuka continuing with safety here. No aggressive plays towards height yet, but they have their eyes on it. They're waiting for that right opportunity to strike. You can see multiple layers up top, trying to find the most effective way to chop it down as it comes through. Chap connecting though. Teeny continue to take shots at Merstash and Malabuka. They get chopped again though, as they're forced to walk on ahead. And no full-on aggression yet successfully for the high ground, but Malabuka might be able to make something happen here. But as the shots come through, Chap almost gets knocked down. 30 HP left on the board, no shield. One more shot connected by Merstash, and it looks like Malabuka and Merstash have just retaken high ground.
The typical 10th zone retake on the high ground. Malabuka and Merstash, they were fine hiding on that middle layer. They were the meat in the middle of that sandwich, but enough is enough. They looked above, and it was persistence. Not once, but twice they chopped down the high ground and eventually taking them down. The 2 eliminations they have were some of the most important eliminations of the game, but here might be 2 more. Stroll goes up. Nice knock on the Merstash. Now Malabuka's by himself and meets the same fate. Sky and Scroll, 11th zone. They overtake high ground, and now they have a chance to win.
It's not done yet. In the blink of an eye, 6 eliminations for Scroll. Sky helping him out with another one for 7. And just like that, they've claimed the clouds. The king of the sky getting dropped down. And Scroll is going to connect in time. It's actually looking like Cammy and Seti now that are the ones wanting to play a bit aggressive up top. But as the zone gets smaller and smaller, so does the risk for that high ground retake. And now the med kits are going to be the play.
Yeah, we got a double stagger. Usually it's a solo trying to save as much of the heals as possible. Now we have Seti and Cammy doing it together. They're trying to not only get the placement points of teams that are dropping by, but a good flank and a good opportunity to get a couple more eliminations. Now's the chance. Seti's making the move. He gets the first drop. Frozzy, he gets separated. He's struggling to get back up the mountain, runs out of builds, and runs into Seti, who takes him down, but it's going to be a trade. Now Cammy's left by himself.
Saren popping a medkit now. Another one in the inventory as well. Can play a decent heal off here. Sky and Scroll continuing with the pressure from above. Cammy left as a solo now in the mix of the aggression here. Gonna go for a right-hand peek. Nice knock. 1 player left now, but he gets taken out from the back. Sky Scroll still up above as Saren has popped both medkits. 50 HP now. And it looks like he's going to have to drop down for the 1v1 or take the 1v2 above.
Hey, I would drop down maybe a couple more elims with Sky and Scroll. They're looking like they've had enough of staying up top. They're ready to drop down, finish this game, and try to gather the 2 eliminations. That's crucial points. Well, there goes 1. We can count it up. Well, there goes 2. We can check that one off the list as Sky and Scroll steal that game away.
They said, we're not letting these solos fight it out. We want those eliminations. They were playing a bit passive there in the last moments, but then in the blink of an eye, they said, you know what are we doing? We want a bit more points. We want a bit more eliminations. Both of us are healthy as they drop down, secure those elims, and take home game number 1.
Yeah, it was in the 10th zone. Malabuka Merstash, they took high ground. I thought it was solidified, but out of nowhere, Sky and Scroll, they were probably watching that all go down. They probably wanted high ground themselves, but when they saw Malabuka Merstash go up, they say, yeah, this is our chance. Send them up. We'll take them down shortly after and steal the game away. Sky and Scroll, you got to give them a huge round of applause for that one. And that, Takata, is how you set the tone on Qualifier 2.
It's a solid way to start for this duo. I mean, Chap and Teeny were the initial high ground duo. They held it from first moving zone. Merstash, Malabuka were kind of like, should we take it? They're keeping an eye on it. They eventually played for it, but just like that, Sky Scroll finished it off at the perfect moment and closed out game number 1. We're gonna head to a quick break, but when we're back, we'll be at the desk to break it all down.
welcome back to FNCS. And if you've just joined us, you missed a fantastic game one, but we're just getting started. 6 more games to go. 5 more games to go, I should say. I can't do maths clearly. But Mini Miner, this lobby is on fire at the moment. And I mean, what a performance from Sky and Scroll.
Yeah, really nice performance from Sky and Scroll, a duo that I was looking at going into last season's grand finals as a potential underdog duo, and they performed very well, 13th then. Of course, now they're looking to make their grand finals for this season as well, and it's nice to see them picking up where they left off. I don't think we saw them last week in the finals, so to see them really take this first game by the scruff of his neck and really just try and go for height when Mustache and Malabuka were a little bit scuffed up there is really, really nice to see, and to pair it with high amount of eliminations as well, Evan, is really, really nice.
Yeah, a lot of people right now in EU are sort of wondering, like, who, where's the talent at? Who are the top people we need to be paying attention to? Sky and Scroll, an example of 2 players who you need to have your eyes on them. They've been on the rise the past couple seasons, and I don't think we've ever mentioned on the broadcast. I know some people in the community know this already, but for the people who don't know, Scroll's name is actually Scroll because he does just that. He doesn't have any build binds, doesn't have any weapon binds. He scrolls for every single bind on his mouse, which, if you don't understand, that is just ridiculous and crazy. And the fact that he can be a top Fortnite player while playing like that, optimal binds in the mud. Who needs optimal binds when you can scroll through everything? I mean, what a player he is. These guys are really exciting. You should definitely keep your eyes on them.
I mean, it's really exciting to see them taking down the likes of Mustache and Malabuka, because Mustache and Malabuka, they did make it to the lobby last week. I think they were actually our #1 at the end of the day. They had such a great performance, and I love the fact that we're getting to see them preparing so well and just continuing what they started last week, Levin.
I will correct you in that Marine and Cade. Well, #1, let's put some respect on Marine and Cade,
our
actually.
Welsh friend Cade, yes.
Yeah, we've got to put some respect on him. But Mustache and Malabuka were some of the top dogs in that lobby, and understandably, when you give Mustache this Mythic AR, he's going to cause problems. I mean, absolutely bossing Teeny and Chap off of height, which not many people can do nowadays, but then they got bossed off of height. So, the cycle continues here. I think, I wouldn't be too concerned with how this game played out for them. Malabuka and Mustache, we don't typically see them on height a bunch. Obviously, they won a game from there last weekend, which was interesting, but for the most part, these guys, do a lot of their best work on mid and low, but it was still good to see them sort of getting in the mix here this game.
Yeah, really not concerned about this duo at all. I mean, last week we spoke about it. Who would you rather coming out of Redline Rig, Mustache Malabuka, Swizzy Vanyak? I know we both had differing opinions, Levin, but we can both agree on the fact that when Mustache and Malabuka can have that coin, can have that assault rifle every single game, and can make it to end games every single game, they are going to be on fire. And it's nice to see them trying to play for height a little bit there as well. It's nice to see them adapting slightly to what we've seen from them, particularly last week as well. We really didn't see them make too many bold, risky plays like we used to see them do.
Let's take a look at the standings after game #1. Just a quick little fact for everyone. All of our duos who are playing this weekend, they are definitely qualified for at least the lower bracket. But we're looking at a leaderboard benchmark that everyone's trying to hit of 603 points. Obviously, the points you're seeing there for just game #1 alone. So whoever made it last week, they've obviously got some points already on the season leaderboard. Mini Miner. Just looking there at the duos, obviously fantastic to see Seti and Cami up there, and it was brilliant also to see both of them making it to the final zone before Cami got soloed. Mini Miner.
Yeah, it was nice to see from this duo. I mean, we expect to see them getting into good positions in endgame. We expect to see them getting together in endgame. And what we expect to see is them carrying these medkits into endgame as well. Of course, going into the storm here, we saw Cami playing these medkits a little bit earlier, and we've seen that through a lot of teams so far this season, where instead of getting involved with all the mess inside of that final moving zone, players just opting to sit back, play those medkits in a more traditionally early sense that a lot of people would say. It's like, why is he playing that so early? But it just allows him to avoid all of that mess when all the players have no materials. People are nitroing around. Of course, it's less effective now, but it still means that they can maximize and squeeze out as much of the placement points as they can.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how Cami and City do now with how the meta's changed. We sort of alluded to it at the start of the day, but, near the start of the season, I remember I had the pleasure of getting a chance to watch one of their cash cups up close. Like, I was in call with them watching it, and I have to say, they played almost perfectly, right? But they didn't really get the reward for it, right? There'd be a lot of games where they play everything perfectly, but they get a 10th place, 11th place. So there was so many things that would just come into play that were just out of their control, with the fierce and the nitro splashing and whatnot. But now that they don't have to worry about that stuff as much, it's like these guys are going to do what they do. They're going to consistently get top 5s for you. And it might be boring, might not be pretty on the eye, but they will get the results.
I'm really confused though by what happened in that game for Queasy and Thomas, because when we saw them initially contending with Storm Surge, Levin, they prepped so well. They looked really good for it, and then Thomas gets taken down.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these things happen. I think with Queasy and Thomas, what we've seen again over the past couple of seasons, the last two in particular, right? Like, they just haven't always had like the best set in Storm strats when it comes to Storm Surge, right, throughout the mid game. Again, am I panicking yet? I think we've probably all learned our lessons not to panic too much, right? When we get to grand finals, if this is still an issue, then sure. But for the most part, man, if you count these guys out, they will painfully prove you wrong. So I'm holding my cards close to my chest there.
I would never ever count Queasy and Thomas out because I would get disowned by
like
the
you're doing
community,
it,
and I'd
A
probably
little bit.
disown myself,
yeah.
to be quite honest with you. So before I talk myself into a hole, let's get ready for game number 2 with Takata and Jacob PR.
We are ready. We're born ready here for game number 2, Takata. And this is it. Game 1 is already done and over with. There's 5 games left. And even though there's the semifinals, there's the grand finals, I already said it, hundreds of thousands of people have started in this FNCS. After today, only 255 teams will remain.
Not a lot of teams, not a lot of names, but as Frankie was saying earlier, let's see if some of the big dogs can make something happen here in game 2. I'm surprised how much action we kind of saw for that high ground. Constant retakes, more than we've seen in the previous qualifiers, so it's also exciting to see kind of how the low ground has shifted with those changes to Nitro. Not as much chaos down below when all those players are kind of battling out, as when you do run out of materials, it tends to get a little stacked up there, but the battle bus is stacked up and ready to fly on into the map. So let's head over to game number 2.
This is already the second go around of the battle bus dropping into the island. Everybody has their drop spots already figured out. And the interesting thing about today is we saw in game 1, Swizzy and Vaniac were contested. When everybody was on social media picking their drop spots, putting their flag on their stand, Swizzy and Vaniac were uncontested. So already things have switched and shaken up before the tournament has even started. And let's see if Swizzy and Vaniac can get their revenge. They've already been taken down once, and it was very, very early on. Let's see if they can defend Brutal Beachhead now.
It's basically a 50-50 up here to see who can pick up those initial weapons, and it looks like Swizzy Vaniac are not going to be the ones landing first, as now the battle continues. It's going to last a bit longer than last match, but aggression is what we're going to see here, as the slurp barrels are going to be put to good use. Shield close to maxed out. It's going to be a tough one.
It is just a little bit more prolonged, especially if you consider Brutal Beachhead is this big warship, this boat, and there's so many nooks, crannies, corners, doorways, places to just hide. So if you kind of get lost, you get lost of track of time, where your duo is at, where the enemy team could be at, it's an easy way to kind of get caught off guard. So both of these teams, I feel like there's going to be a lot of looting, a lot of materials, and kind of wait for the last second to try to get that medallion. But QNDX and Phantom yet again starting off their contested drop with a big win.
A lot quicker this time. Repetition from last game. QNDX Phantom being the winners of this early game fight, and it happened so quickly that they don't even have any troubles from the third parties and the surrounding areas. So now they should have a lot more time to kind of finish up their loot path and continue on with their rotation. I'm not sure exactly where they finished in the last match, but hopefully with a quicker start here, they should have a lot more freedom on playing it out.
Yeah, switching regions is easy, especially going to one of the best regions. As the eliminations again just starting off very, very quickly. Nitro Drum contested. Chap and Teeny, they're just ready to just take over, dominate anybody who drops here, and then move on over to the Forecast Tower, because we saw it last week. That is one of the main parts of their plan that they go after the drop.
What a size Snazy. 12 points on the board, aiming for an 11th place. We all know how beneficial it can be to qualify to the upper bracket of the semifinals. You get way more opportunities to make it directly to the grand finals. But 11th place is not going to be easy. QNDX Phantom, we just talked about it, actually finished 36th in the last game. So we'll see how the kind of changes now that they do have a bit more time to play it out. Podosai Snazy, though, the aggressors now saying, we don't want to waste no time here. Forcing their opponents into the building now. Playing corners, playing shots, trying to see if they can get an opening.
You said it. We all know it. Around 11th place, Podesai and Snazy. That's what they need for that upper bracket berth. And they're a team, we've seen them so much over the years, progressively getting better. The Global Championship, they had a whole section, a whole crowd of French members just kind of rooting for them left, right, and center. And I think having that fuel, having that confidence kind of helps you a bunch. As Snazy grabs another angle, shield's gone just like that. You can see his duo trying to alleviate some of that pressure. Snazy quickly reacting once again, not wanting to get caught off guard, but this is where it kind of gets a little sticky because you see him 4 medium bullets left in his arsenal. So if he wants to continue this long-range battle and not bring it down to a box fight, he's going to have to figure out where to get that ammo from, whether he's disengaged, looting up, or just sticking to the close-range box fights that we know and love in Fortnite.
Yeah, you know, if you look at the mini-map at the bottom right, there's not too many players in the surrounding area, not any players at all, basically. So they have a lot of time here to kind of play this out without having to worry about a third party. But what they are giving up are those potential materials, the loot they get from rotations. However, this is an important engagement to win, so it might take a little longer, but if Podesai and Snazy are able to secure 2 elims here, it could be quite massive as the EMP comes through, taking out a bit of shield. And right now, the engagement is going to be fully coming to a close. Podesai connecting nice shots, but his duo partner has gone down. It's a 1 versus 1 now. HP and shield advantage for Podesai as the full box comes through and the last shot connected to pick up those 2 eliminations. Snazy got knocked down quite quickly there. It made me a bit scared, but it looks like they have cleaned it up in the end.
Yeah, that was a good job by Snazy, though. He crashed in from this side. He was the one that caused all that distraction. It was a huge sacrifice that I think worked out for them. Now they get the time to kind of get the resources, everything that they need, but a lot of action going down as so many different POIs. Reckless Railways, even though we saw those 2 teams initially fighting there in the replay, I saw on the minimap a 3rd team, and then you see another 4th team, and this is where it happens in these rotations. As it goes towards the center, moves towards the west, teams are going to have to figure out, do you just white line, or do you try to make that slow rotation towards the outskirts?
Forecast tower battle. Chaptini once again. But it looks like it's Sky and Scroll who are going to be the ones on the other end, coming from their back-to-back victory royales, one being from round 3, the first match of these qualifier finals. But you got to be careful when you're going against a duo as strong as Chap and Tini. You can't make a single mistake. But Chap has been knocked down. Sky is going to be the one that got the elimination as Tini gets cracked now, just 1 shot away to be sent back to the lobby. And Sky and Scroll now going to be happy with the way they just started off their 2nd match.
Yeah, that's a big win. It helps them in terms of Storm Surge. Now they're going to get the Forecast Tower. And since they've already pulled zone, there is a mountain right by that Forecast Tower with a launch pad. You can box up on that one, get some elevation if you do need Storm Surge after a fight just like this. They just seemed like they were in full control almost every step of the way. It didn't matter if shots were coming into the third party. And Sky and Scroll, they ended round 3 with a win. They started round 4 with a win. And now they're playing game 2 already with a big battle for the Forecast Tower.
Yeah, this is huge for this duo. We can hope that they keep this momentum going forwards as we switch on over to Ju here alongside Asa, as it looks like they've secured 2 elims, but they're pursuing a solo. So I'm curious to see kind of how this situation came to be, but I'm sure they know that there's another duo now kind of wanting to join the party. Said, where's my invite? Well, they don't need one. As now the question is, are they going to wait it out to see if any shields get cracked? There's kind of like an opening to get closer, but for 9 on the other end, kind of saying, you know, that third party could turn into a 4th party, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, and you kind of see the mini-map. Yeah, you spotted out for 9. You know he's kind of at the entrance to that bridge. Over towards your still real bottom left. That's his teammate, and that's why he has to be very, very careful. He enters this fight with Ju. He has to go in. It's all or nothing. His teammate just went down, and there is a huge save right there, but another team's moving in. That was the one you were talking about. They got